Welcome back to Beagle Eye Visions Internet. Unfortunately, I have some very sad news. YouTube is probably going to slap the last episode featuring the first part of this episode number 43, The State of Thrall, featuring Mark Passio. Because YouTube is just so 10 out of 10, absolutely amazing platform that doesn't restrict anybody's content, even people who are talking about movie allegory like Rob Ager. But anyways, now I'm kind of going off on a rant. So yeah, unfortunately, like I said, the first part of this episode is probably going to get flagged. I probably won't be able to post any videos for up to 2 weeks because YouTube is just so awesome. So, as usual, I got no goals. Gonna roam around Far Harbor. Just gonna slaughter creatures, get screws, get caps, acquire duct tape, and and consume a lot of chems and drink a lot of alcohol. So that's what we're going to do. The usual plans. I've ranted enough. Let's get some knowledge. Thank you for choosing Beagle Eye, and thanks again for YouTube for censoring everybody's platforms and restricting freedom of speech. Totally amazing. And I'm totally not being sarcastic whatsoever at all. Thank you, YouTube.
And moral relativism. The idea that mankind can make up what right and wrong are. Right and wrong are an objective standards that exist in the fabric of nature, in reality. That they're moral relativism says that morals aren't objective. They're not based inherently in nature. They'll say that they're subjective and they're based on the perceptions of human beings and the whims of human beings. That's Satanism. That's one of the biggest tenets of Satanism is moral relativism. That human beings can make up what rights are. Human beings can make up what wrongs are. Well, if human beings can make up what rights are, and rights are human beings' creation, subjectively as a construct in the mind, well, then human beings can get rid of rights whenever they no longer suit their aims. Oh, well, we don't need those. Let's get rid of those rights. We don't need those, by definition. And people who are saying they want to be free don't even understand that, They think you can have freedom and moral relativism simultaneously. Well, that's like having your cake and eating it too. It doesn't work like that. It doesn't work like that.
Okay, guys, we are at our first break, and we will see you on the other side.
No break.
We're at our first break, and we will see you. And we are going to start off with a question from Brandon.
Well, I wanted to ask you a question here about the season of sacrifice.
Sure.
What do you think happens to the consciousness of your average person and brain functionalities when we repeatedly experience this type of psychological operation done in our world?
Great question. I would say it's a high level of trauma. Trauma is what we're really referring to. Dynamically, psychologically, that's happening. And it's terrible. I mean, unless they're very, very knowledgeable about the exact techniques that are used, they're going to go into a traumatic reaction. And that damages the brain. It damages the psyche. It damages the mind, And often what they are doing when they put them into this type of a traumatic mindset is they're softening them up for what is to come, because most people will be like, well, I don't want to be messed up. I don't want to be, have health damaged and or damaged like by a bomb or something like that. I don't want to have chaos going on all around me in my society. So I'll do whatever is asked of me to avoid that. See, people want to avoid these negative, painful situations. They don't want a painful situation happening. And they're convinced, because of the way that the ritual is set up, the way that the Hegelian dialectic chaos sorcery event is set up, that unless they externalize their power and give their power away to, quote, the authorities, right, to people in positions of authority already, that they're going to have to live in a painful, situation. You know, that's what the mind controllers convince them of, that you're going to have to live in an uncomfortable, painful, chaotic situation unless you give us your power. And they're all too happy to say, here, deal with it, hand it over. I don't want to deal with that. Do whatever you have to. If it inconveniences me and it takes my rights away, I'm all the more willing to give that up as an inconvenience, because I want this taken care of. They don't want to take the responsibility to deal with, if it's a real threat, deal with it themselves, you know? That's why I've always said I don't believe in prisons. That doesn't teach people to deal with the responsibility, to take on the responsibility of having to deal with a criminal element that they've made in their own society. They've made in their own midst. Through not morally educating the young grow into psychopathic adults, commit crimes, and then who should have to deal with that? Should a small class of people have to deal with that? Then they say we're the authorities because we're dealing with all of the bad people that our whole community created amongst ourselves? No. There should not be any organization like that. The people themselves should exercise the responsibility to deal with what they themselves have created. That's called personal responsibility. And you know what? Freedom and personal responsibility are no longer good terms in our culture. They're like bad words. It's like evil four-letter words.
Right.
It's unbelievable when you say freedom. You know, when you say personal responsibility. You know, it is utterly amazing that people actually believe that that's a bad thing in the modern world. They say, "Oh, you're a freedom advocate. You're a freedom champion." How selfish. How selfish. Imagine this.
Yeah, it's horrible.
That I stand for morality and personal responsibility, you know? And I'm being called selfish. People like me are being called selfish. The nerve that they have.
Yeah, it seems like there's a lot of ambiguity being brought into it as well. People don't understand the definitive definitions of those terms anymore, and they're being completely inverted to the point where it's self-destructive to the whole society.
Right. That's exactly what's going on. You know, they believe that freedom means not being responsible. You know,
right?
They think being responsible is like being a collectivist. You know, that you're so identified with the collective that somehow, there's no separation between, you know, me, my rights, and anybody else. You know, as far as a group identity. No, there is still individualism in real freedom. Of course, it means you know, care about others because, you know, everybody's rights are the same. There are no rights that some people have that other people don't. So if one person's rights are being tread upon, then everyone's is. You know, we don't have our own individuated rights unless everyone has their own individuated rights. That's how real freedom works. You know, and the real way of creating that situation and preserving it is by taking true personal responsibility to do the right thing. You know, even if it means defending yourself against psychopaths, defending yourself against criminal elements. Of course, that's the second principle of natural law. The first principle is the non-aggression principle. Don't initiate harm against your fellow sentient being. And the second principle is if harm is initiated against you, then you have a right to defend yourself against it with whatever amount of force is necessary to repel the harm. You know, that's it. And, you know, we can never give that right up either. You know, people who think that, somehow caring about others is that you're going to give up your right to defend yourself. No, that's exactly not caring about others. Giving up the right to defend yourself means you don't care about others, especially if you're going to give up the right to defend yourself against, you know, people who, are psychopaths and criminals, you know?
So I got another question for you here, Mark.
Sure.
You had mentioned the ritual at Bohemian Grove, and I want to know exactly why the dark occult love using the symbols of the dove and the owl.
Sure. Well, the dove and the owl obviously both go back into the ancient past symbolically. The owl goes back into goddesses that were basically from the Babylonian and Sumerian period, namely goddesses like Ishtar, Inanna, etc. And that represented the care element. That represented, you know, heart-based energy. You know, the goddess was always the symbol of emotion, you know. It was always the symbol of protection as well, because if we have the heart-based intelligence that is generated by our emotions, and we follow that, and we develop that into the knowledge of conscience, and then we live according to that, we express that through wisdom, through doing the right action, then, you know, the sacred male child is born into the world of right action, you know, which is really the savior of the world, symbolically. So, you know, this goddess was always that symbol of that type of heart-based power and transformation. And so that's why they want to pervert it. You know, the same thing with the dove. The dove goes back into ancient Egypt, and of course Rome and, you know, Greece. And that is also a symbol of many goddesses. You know, in the Egyptian tradition, Isis, going down into the Grecian and Roman traditions, many different names for the goddess over time. Athena, you know, trying to think of a couple of other ones. You know, well, the point is that the dove was always symbolized by that. Of course, in the Christian tradition, the dove symbolizes the Holy Spirit, which is connected with Mary. You know, she's that goddess figure that is removed from the Trinity in the Christian tradition and replaced with the dove, symbolizing the Holy Spirit. So the dove is, again, that symbol of feminine energy, of heart-based energy, of, you know, heart-based intelligence and true care. So, of course, in the dark occult, they want to twist and pervert that symbol, right? So, especially you're seeing that with the owl. So the owl is becoming the bull god, right, of Molech in the Carthaginian tradition, because instead of actually, you know, using the owl in its true aspect, they're making an owl that's a horned owl that looks similar to Molech. So it's a twisting and a perverting of that symbol. Okay, that's what they're doing there. That's all the dark occult ever does. They don't create, they pervert. They twist what's there already. So the whole ritual is set up in it's an actual feminized ritual, the cremation of care. The symbology there is ancient feminine goddesses, but they're turning it into the symbol of their ancient male god that they sacrificed children to back in Carthage, okay, and in other places in the world. It's again like a mockery ritual. You have to look at it like that. Like they're intentionally twisting certain forms. So the goddess symbol of the owl is not really the owl. It's the bull of Molech. If you look at pictures of Molech in any drawings or depictions, it was always a bull. And this is their real god. Again, Baal, Bel, Bill, you know, has always been their god, the bull god, okay, because it represents the sun in Taurus, which is, again, where the rising of the equinox was, of the sun and the equinox, in the precession of the equinox at that time period, 6,000 years ago, the sun was in Taurus. You know, obviously now it's in Pisces and heading toward Aquarius in the precession. So, you know, they're paying homage to the bull god, which is the sun in Taurus. And that's why it's the symbol of Wall Street, the golden bull, right? The illuminated bull, okay, the bull god. That's why our money is bills, right? Again, it's an homage to the name of their god Baal, okay? You know, you can go on and on. You know, the Bilderberg group means Bill's house, the spirit of Bill's house, you know. They use this name as a ritual form of mockery over and over and over again. Okay, you know, their high holiday is Beltane. That means Bel's wheel. Well, what is Bel's wheel? The zodiac. You know, Bel is the sun and his wheel is the zodiac. You know, that's May 1st, the end of the season of sacrifice, Beltane. So, you know, you can go on and on with looking at, you know, this BL combination, right? That's the name of their god, and that's why they use it over and over again in their rituals and in their symbolism. But, that's the feminine symbolism is what they're deliberately using, because they're trying to come in and twist it and distort it and ritually mock it by tying it in with their god Molech and the sacrifice that they're giving it, namely the care energy. They're immolating care and immolating conscience. Conscience is really what is being immolated there. People's drive to do what is right. They don't want that present. They want people easily pushing it away, saying that's dull, that doesn't serve my egoic wishes and desires, and I could easily just push that away and just set it on fire and not ever care about it again. That's the whole idea of the ritual, is absolution for the sins that you're going to do. Don't worry about caring about them. Just do what you're going to do and receive your reward. That's what the absolution ritual is all about, because these are people who are there, who are going to be the henchmen that they're going to pay probably a whole lot of money and resources to over the next year to carry out their bidding the long-term agenda. These are just low-level point men. That's all they are. That's who basically attends those rituals. And that's why you just look at it. You look at where is humanity's mindset. All you got to do is look at how big of a waiting list there is for something like Bohemian Grove. There's a decade-long waiting list to get into that club. That's how many people would do that, would want to be in that position of power. Humanity hasn't really learned much of anything. All they really care about is money. All most people care about is money. From the day they wake up, minute they wake up till the minute they go to sleep, that's all they're concerned about. They don't care about what's right, And as long as people don't care about what's right, freedom is impossible. And that's what the great work is. The great work is to tell people it doesn't matter. You have to become the person that is so strong in what is right that it does not matter if all the wealth and power of the world are offered to you. You would still reject it to do the right thing. And I know that sounds like an unbelievable standard, but it's like, help us to advance the vaccine agenda. Help us to advance the GMO food agenda. Help us to advance the police state agenda. There is no amount of money that could be given to me. No amount. Would not matter if you said you are now the king of all money and no one else has a penny and you have all money. It wouldn't matter. I would say I don't want it. I'm not interested. That's it.
Absolutely.
This is the kind of person that has to be built. Now, then the question becomes, how many people worldwide, percentage-wise, when it comes to all of humanity, do you think are already built to that level of strength? It's an infinitesimally piss-poor, little tiny piss-in-a-pot amount that amounts to a hill of beans. It's nothing. It's zero, practically, when it comes to all of humanity, percentage-wise. Almost everybody would take a certain payoff to do a certain immoral behavior. We have to all become the people who would never do it, no matter what, no matter how much is offered. And we're nowhere near that. Nowhere near it.
Yeah, I have to agree with you. It's a very, very sad state with that. You kind of already answered this question, but, do you think that the average person would willfully take up that position of being a dark occultist if they had that opportunity, even if they weren't getting paid?
I would say if they were offered the benefits that come with it, like worldly power and other, types of, influence and other types of, positions of comfort that come with it, absolutely. Right. I think most people would trade places with the master. If they, even if they recognize there's a world of masters and slaves, most people would say, I would be totally comfortable becoming one of the masters and continuing the slave class. There's a movie called I Care a Lot that was about this, that was just released, that has a sort of a twist ending, which I thought was pretty decent. But the whole movie is about this woman who, makes this satanic mindset recognition that, the world is already a world of power and masters and slaves, and I'm going to be the wolf instead of the sheep. And it's fine for me to devour whoever is under me, But then, you have to watch it to see where it goes. But the whole point is, most people would totally do that in a heartbeat, is my answer. In a heartbeat, with no problem at all, with no moral, trepidation whatsoever. They would do it in a second.
Yeah, I've asked most people, like just running into people at the bars or at events and things like this, that same question, and they always answer honestly, and they say, yes, I would definitely take up that position.
Right.
And, I would get some benefit from that.
And do you know what
Why
it means?
wouldn't I?
Do you know what that means? That means that they're perfectly okay with the continuation of slavery. That's how you have to answer them. See, if people say that to me, what I say is, well, that means that the kind of person that you are is that you are perfectly fine with slavery continuing as long as you believe you're not one of the slaves. That's the kind of person that would look at a slavery plantation next door to him. If he was in Civil War era America and he had a house adjacent to the plantation, he'd look over at the slaves and he'd be like, boy, I'm glad that's not me. That's the kind of person you're dealing with there. And he's like, it'd be nice if I had a bunch of slaves here on my property, but I'm not rich enough to have that. That's the kind of person that you're dealing with there. And if you say it to them like that, maybe they'll think about it a little bit. Yeah, that's what has to be said to people who answer something like that way, is that's what you would have been in Civil War era America. You'd be looking over the property line fence, and you'd be going, boy, I wish I had all these slaves. Wouldn't that make my life so much better? You wouldn't be interested in freeing people from slavery at all. That's the exact same thing that's going on just about everywhere today. People looking at the whole world situation and government and saying that it's fine for this to continue. Totally condoning slavery of government and being totally fine with it. No problem with the authority of government, no problem with the claim of authority on other people, and many of them, you'd say, well, if you could become president and call shots, or if you could become a high-level politician and call shots in any given area, would you do it? They would say, yes, I would. And believing that things would be better because they would be the ones calling the shots. Not realizing that what has to happen is a system of authority and slavery needs to end completely because it's an immoral condition. It never was moral, it isn't moral now, and it never will be moral.
That's right. Yeah, I find it more often than not that most people are not, in complete ignorance about what's going on in the world. They actually know that this is a system of slavery, and they willfully continue to persist and condone that and support that. And I find that more and more as I, put more work out there that, people do understand this at some level. We cannot give them any type of justification for them to be in that mindset, because it is the collective masses that are allowing this to take place, obviously.
Without a doubt. I mean, could you imagine that that's the kind of people that humanity has become? Humanity has become people that when seeing a wrongdoing being perpetrated, just say, well, I'm not hurt right now, so what if that continues? And a bunch of other people get hurt down the line. I'm not going to worry about that until I'm necessarily the one being hurt. And they believe they're good. They believe that somehow constitutes being a good person. That isn't a good person. Those are bad people. That's what it means to be a bad person, And not enough people have said that to them. And clearly their parents haven't instilled any true morality in them. Clearly their parents have just let them, go along with that mindset. Or maybe the parents instilled that mindset in them, And we have to just say to each other, this is unacceptable. This is unacceptable, and it needs to be fought. And I don't mean it needs to be physically fought. It needs to be absolutely confronted.
Bring it.
We have to make it a confrontational thing when we speak to people, regarding these dynamics. It needs to be fought. Psychologically, it needs to be fought. Culturally, we need to put that this is a wrong idea. That thinking that way is just wrong, morally, out there to other people, openly. and if necessary, confrontationally. That makes a situation completely uncomfortable and maybe even puts relationships on thin ice or destroys them altogether. Because if these are the people that we're having any types of relationship with, even in an associate or friendship type relationship, that means that we're having a relationship with somebody who is really bad. They're a bad, immoral person deep down inside. And I think we got to give them, at the very minimum, a time to reevaluate what they think and change it or sever the relationship. Say,
Right.
I can't really continue with this relationship because I don't consider you a moral being.
Right. And it's a, and that's the extension of the principle of self-defense,
That's right.
It goes a long way.
That's right, because if they're making it clear to you that they're that kind of person, who's to say that they won't do something like that to you next?
Right.
That's not a person that can be trusted.
Absolutely. I had a question regarding the events of the season of sacrifice, something that you talk about with the dove. I was hoping you could expand on that, what that means in correspondence with these events.
Sure. Well, you see things like the Columbine massacre. Kaloum means dove, in Romance languages. You see things like the Columbia space shuttle disaster. You see, other events where they're bringing this type of symbolism of the dove into events that happened during that time period. Again, the dove represents the goddess. It represents the Holy Spirit. It represents caring, right? It represents, the dynamic heart-based energy that basically says, if someone else is suffering, I'm suffering. If someone else's rights are being taken away, my rights are being taken away. That's what the dove represents. So, of course, in these rituals, they want to use a sacrifice symbol, For example, the Columbia space shuttle burning up in the atmosphere, That's a symbolic ritual of the dove being immolated. Again, you often see this idea of the dove is set on fire, You often see the dove at war memorials, And this is the idea that, that's just another huge sacrifice ritual. War is a big sacrifice ritual. It's ongoing. It's an ongoing sacrifice ritual. So, again, the key thing to keep in mind whenever you see dove symbolism is, and of course, Washington, D.C., where our rights are constantly ritualistically immolated. D.C. is the District of Columbia. Kaloum, the dove, Again, it's all done to symbolically mock the goddess. A lot of people think, the dark occultists they are venerating the goddess. They're not venerating the goddess. It's not a worship of their goddess. You have to understand they are killing the goddess. It is a ritual sacrifice and murder of the goddess because the goddess represents care, heart-based intelligence, heart energy, which they don't want expressing in the world. They don't want that to express in the world. They want selfishness to express in the world. They want people only caring about themselves to express in the world. They want people saying, well, as long as that's not happening to me, I don't care that it's happening to other people. That's what they want expressing in the world. That is all ritualistically and symbolically the murder of the goddess, the murder of the dove.
It's just so crazy when you actually go down the rabbit hole and see all these events that have taken place during this time. And, you really start to see the patterns. And I was wondering if you could explain how you can see the patterns, especially regarding gematria.
Well, you look at something like 9/11, a big human sacrifice ritual. Didn't take place during the season of sacrifice, took place in the month of September. But clearly an example of chaos sorcery, clearly a human sacrifice ritual. And, to be honest with you, I think that 9/11 was the linchpin where everything turned. I think that 9/11 was like a test for humanity that we failed, completely failed. 9/11 was the event that the universe basically put before our consideration and said, here's your opportunity to prove that you care. Here's your opportunity to prove that you will expose deception and falsehood. Here's the opportunity to prove that you're not okay with 3,000 of your fellow beings being ritualistically murdered. And you're going to get down to the truth of what occurred and expose it. And you know what humanity said? Screw all that. We don't need any part of that, you know? We're going to accept the official story. We're going to, do what they tell us in the aftermath with the Patriot Act, etc., and lock down our society and take away people's rights and freedoms. And we don't care who really did it. We're going to accept that 19 Arab hijackers with box cutters, defeated NORAD and flew 2 planes into 3 buildings, knocked down 3 buildings with 2 planes. Most people to this day don't even know 3 buildings came down on 9/11, not 2. They know nothing about Building 7. And they certainly don't know about the occult underpinnings. See, I think that was it was a opening of the gate ritual, and the coronavirus is almost like a closing of the gate. It's like you had a 20-year period to expose the truth. And it's like that's what could have transformed society if we exposed the truth of 9/11. And instead, the society has to get shut down further, and if we don't expose the truth of the coronavirus pandemic nonsense, society is going to get shut down even further at probably a faster point, a sooner point. It's not going to be 20 years. It's going to be less than 10 or 5. Okay. And this is because humanity doesn't have the knowledge to see the patterns, and it doesn't have the courage to expose the truth. It doesn't care. It's totally ignorant. It's apathetic. It doesn't care. It doesn't want to do the work. It doesn't want to take the responsibility, and people still aren't honest about it. They're still not honest about that. They're still making excuses for people. There is no excuse. This should be as evident as waking up and going outside and seeing the sun in the sky. Literally, that's how blatant this stuff is becoming. And yet people still, because of their cowardice, don't want to rock the boat. They don't want to be noticed. They don't want to speak out. They don't want to use their voice. Again, the universe is spoken into existence. Our experience is spoken into existence. What we say becomes what we experience. There's no easier way of putting the law of attraction than that. What we speak and then what is eventually accepted as being true by other people is what becomes our experience. So what our experience is now is the collective acceptance of what has been spoken to us, mostly through the media and through so-called education. And look at it. What is it worth? It's a totally worthless garbage experience. All this experience should be teaching us is what not to do. We did nothing of what is required and everything that is wrong, So 9/11 to me is a great example of this, with how much ritual they put into things. It was the 2 pillars, that are the Masonic pillars of Jachin and Boaz being destroyed, symbolically representing the destruction of the Temple of Solomon. What is the symbolic Temple of Solomon? It's the brain. Traumatic rituals destroy the brain, destroy the mind. The left brain and the right brain, sun and moon, the male and female aspects of consciousness, soul, mon, Solomon. The Temple of Solomon is the brain. It's the mind, and that's what they're ritualistically destroying. They're destroying consciousness. They're traumatizing the mind. That's all human and chaos sorcery rituals do that. And then you look at the gematria. Flight 11, 175, and 93. I mean, to an occultist, that's like red flags and bells and whistles should go off. 11 is the number of the occult. That's a signaling number. Then you have 175. If you add that together, you get 196, and split them in half, it's 93. Or 186, right? Split that in half, it's 93. Okay, so you have 3 93s symbolically on 9/11. The plane that crashed in Pennsylvania I claim was really going to be the plane that went to Building 7 and struck that, but it didn't, because an act of will on the part of probably a military person, a Air Force person, shot it out of the sky probably, and that's why there was no major wreckage, so, or it possibly could have been a missile that was shot out of the sky, so, Flight 93, whatever that happened to be, was going to be headed toward Building 7, and that's another symbolic number, 7, representing, climbing out of base consciousness. The 6 is base consciousness. The 7 is, coming out of base consciousness. That's why 666 is the number of the beast, the devil, Satan. It's base consciousness. And 777 represents completion in consciousness, coming out of that lower level of consciousness and being activated in thought, emotion, and action. 666 representing ignorance, apathy, and laziness and cowardice, because you're not using thought, emotion, and action. Those are all inactive or dead. So, tons and tons of gematria used in a lot of their rituals. Especially on 9/11 where it's everywhere. Again, Flight 11 and 175, added together is the number 186. You divide that in 2 and you get 93. So they really, divided 93 over 2 flight numbers, 175 and 11. It's not that hard to figure out if you know occult gematria. It's, like I said, red flags go up as soon as you see the number 11, and especially the number 93. That's like sirens and, wailing, sirens, saying, hey, sit up and pay attention. This is an occult ritual. The number 93 being in theleme of the number of, the will and love. Again, destroying that, right? Destroying 93 on all 3 buildings. If you split 11 and 175 that hit the towers, you have 93 on each building, and then 93 was the one that was supposed to hit Building 7. And 93 means higher level consciousness, love, willpower, being truly active. They don't want that, so those are the things that were destroyed. Those were the things that were, again, ritualistically immolated, because there was so much heat energy used on those buildings that it was like a nuclear fire, Obviously, you're not going to get hot enough to melt steel with, kerosene-based type fuel, so that's not what created all that heat. Clearly, something else did, and made the buildings fall at free fall speed. Because, again, a collapse of a building doesn't happen that way. That kinetic energy is going to be absorbed, and it's going to take a lot longer than the building falling at apparent free fall speed, which all the buildings did. So then you got to ask yourself, well, what is the force that's acting in that way to make them fall that way? And that's when you get into the occult aspects of technology. You get into Tesla. You get into stuff that Judy Wood talked about with directed energy weapons. There's a whole occult science going on with that ritual. In addition to providing the trauma and the Hegelian dialectic of problem, reaction, solution to go and, take natural gas and oil from the Middle East and set up more bases there, so we can continue aggressing upon that area of the world, and an attempt to further destabilize it, for what's coming. So occult symbolism and gematria plays heavily into that because they're creatures of habit. They're not people who will do anything new if they don't have to. And they don't have to, because people don't understand what they're doing. They don't understand any part of the magic that's being played upon them. They're under spell, they're in thrall. There's the word for this whole interview. These people are in what is called a state of thrall, Thrall. It means being held totally in someone else's influence. Where, their will is completely subjugated. It's like mind control, like Svengali holding somebody in total mind control, and that's what the people of the world are held in. They're held in thrall, and they don't even understand that they're in that trance. They don't even understand that they're under that spell, and they believe that they're good people, not looking into any of it. They believe that they're good people, not caring. They believe that they're good people, not becoming active and teaching other people. That doesn't make you a good person. That makes you a coward. That makes you a bad person. You know, cowardice to speak out about any of this stuff makes someone a bad person. And that's what I think we have to continuously emphasize. A good person doesn't turn away and ignore when bad things are happening to other people. A good person tries to expose evil. A good person tries to expose bad, evil events that are perpetrated upon humanity by wicked people. You know, it doesn't hide in a corner going, oh my God, I'm so glad that didn't happen to me, and I'm not going to say anything or rock the boat, and maybe nobody will ever do anything bad to me. A coward does that, you know? And that's most people. Most people are cowards. Most people are ignorant. Most people don't care. And until we influence that to change by helping people to become intelligent, caring, and active, the world is incapable of changing, because the world is an amalgamation. The experience that we undergo in the world is an amalgamation of the behavior of all of its people. And all you have to do is look, what is the quality of the behavior of human beings? Is it high quality behavior, or is it low quality base consciousness behavior? And I think the answer is so evident that a 5-year-old could figure it out. And it's sad, but it's true. And it's our job to do the great work of presenting the truth to people, you know, in a matter-of-fact way, such that that situation changes. That's what the great work is to do.
Wow. Yeah, the gematria is definitely one of the most fascinating topics that has really caught my eye, especially when in correspondence to Freemasonry. Can you give us a little bit of what you know about like the Freemasonry that is used in reference with gematria? I know you kind of already said it with the buildings, but maybe you go a little further with that.
Without slides, it could be a little difficult. I recommend people to go to my podcast section where I break this down with slides, and in the original What on Earth is Happening presentation where I have slides for all of this. But briefly, first of all, Freemasonry is not what a lot of people think that it is. A lot of people don't have any familiarity with it, and they think that it is all one thing. As I said before, just about every occult school of thought, whether it's the Freemasonic school of thought, whether it's Kabbalah, Tarot, Rosicrucianism, Thelema, you know, Cometian science, you know, on and on. There is a dark and a light side, okay? So the light side is teaching the true tradition, unblemished.
All right, Burton, I'm here. Hurry up. Out with it. I have a lot of plans for this summer, and none of them involve chatting with you.
Why, Ronald, I'm hurt. Skipping the pleasantries and getting right down to business. And after all we've accomplished together this semester.
For the last time, you little snot, it's Principal Tanner.
Fine, Principal Tanner. I'll make this quick. You've been giving me mentats to distribute to the students quietly and under the nose of the faculty. I have. Because of this, test scores have skyrocketed. The school board has noticed. We received quite an increase in funding, but the faculty doesn't know. No one here knows except you. And now, me. You've been skimming off the top and pocketing most of the funds. I want 50% of what you're embezzling. We'll go to Superintendent Marcello's brain pills every week. What do you expect, pathetic little man?
Well, so what if it's all true? No one's going to believe you. You're just a kid, and I'm the principal, and more importantly, an adult.
Oh, excellent. I think they'll believe me, Ronald. Especially after they hear you admit everything in your own...
What are you talking about?
Comic books educational?
Wait.
Anything of science?
Is that a
in there?
holotape? You son of a...
Oh, shoot. He said, is that a holotape? I guess we'll find out what happened to old Rusty, or maybe we won't find out what happened. Ooh, Curie. Gosh, Curie's always in the way. Alright, so we'll take a little break there. We'll continue back with Mark Passio on episode number 43 of the CubbyWhole podcast. Hopefully YouTube doesn't slap this episode. take it down. He said the C word, he said the V word. Got a little testy there. Alright, thanks again if you made it this far. The next 2 episodes will be wrapping up with episode 43 of the CubbyWhole podcast, and I will roam around the wasteland some more and tear creatures apart. Hopefully no behemoths will come across our path, but if any behemoths do come across our path, I will be prepared and ready. Alright, next episode I'll finish roaming around the school, figuring out what happened at this high school. Apparently some principal got some extra money. If you read the terminals, some principal got some extra funding for drugging the students. I'm sure somewhere here in America that's probably a true story. Anyways, thanks again. Thanks again if you made it this far. Stay tuned and stay golden, everybody.